Hey everyone, Yasin here, and in this video I want to talk about what I wish I knew about adding dimension to your drawings or creating the sense of thickness. So let's say I was drawing a box. This is something kind of see a lot of people do. I definitely did this myself, where say someone said to draw a box, and you kind of draw it like this, and all the sides are like all these edges are touching. And what happens is, because of that, you get the impression that this box has no thickness, really. Like, it's made out of, I mean, it has like a three-dimensional structure like this, but it almost feels like it's made out of paper. And the reason for this is because we have these areas where the edges touch. So what that does is it makes you feel like, well, there's a sharp crease here. But usually in objects, you don't have like super sharp edges where things just touch like that. Like, this is very perfect, right? In the sense that it's, I don't know, it's just too precise. Whereas what you usually get is at corners, the edges kind of like, even if it's only a tiny bit, there's a little bit of like roundness or a bevel to the edge usually. And so if you have that, then it's not going to look like this where you have like everything right to the edge. So how do we fix that? Well, it's actually pretty easy. Just get rid of like the parts that touch the side, and maybe like add a tiny bit of curve to the corners. Doesn't need to be much, but already that's gonna start to feel like it has a lot more dimension than it used to, because it's implying these broken lines are implying that there is some thickness to this object. Like, you could add like little corners if you want. It's not exactly necessary, but just having these broken lines can help a lot. So even if I was drawing like a cube in a more stylized way, by having broken lines, it can sell that feeling of thickness. And the same is true even with shading. If you if I was shading and I just go right to the edge and I shade, like in this case it's okay because we already rounded the corners and things, but that like creates one look. But if I, let's just do it here. If I kind of stay within that just a little bit and then I add shading, kind of creates a more rounded, chunky feel to things. So that's really important. So for instance, let's say people, like, let's say I was drawing a sword. Maybe when I was starting, I might have drawn something, let's try to make that maybe a bit more straight, something like this for a sword. But again, that's not showing any thickness, that's not showing any dimension, and so it feels very flat and paper-like. Okay, so, well, how do we change this so that it does show some dimension? Well, let's just draw it again. So the outside is not really the problem. The outside contour usually can be the same. It's not like super important that you adjust that too much. What's more important is the internal, the inside part, like with the box, right? The outside, you know, it can actually be where all the parts touch. It's just the inside that you kind of want to leave a bit more open with these lines. So the way to show dimension in a sword like this would be to indicate that there's more going on in the inside part of this than we see. So let's say from the side view, if we looked at this, it's so thin, it just would look like that, like a straight line maybe. But we don't want it to look like that. Like, probably it should get wider at the base, but it would have more of a, like, it actually still has some thickness from the side. So to show that, you could create like an internal section, and then we could use some shading to indicate that this sword has like two areas. There's this flat part in the middle, which is more like that, and that's like that part. And then you have this part, that little, as it goes, you know, in this case it's a bit longer, but as we taper to a point, it gets, there's a plane change like that. So that's what this is indicating, that the plane change from here, which is right there, to here, which is right there, is there. So there is a difference. And so when you do that, and things like, you know, maybe this hilt goes up like that, things start to feel more believable and more three-dimensional. You know, probably this has thickness to it and this has thickness to it. So just adding thickness to things often makes them look a lot better. Swords are a pretty common example. Another one is belts. So you might have someone draw a character and they draw something like this. So here's like character's pants, and then here's a belt. Okay, again, we've got that paper feeling. Nothing here has thickness to it, and so this feels very flat, and you know, just that it's lacking a lot of dimension. So one of the first things to do, and I guess we could just go in detail with like just a belt. So let's say we have this top of the belt, bottom of the belt. Okay, so that's like level 1. Looks super thin and paper-like and not realistic. If we add a bit of thickness so that we see the belt has some dimension, if you viewed it, you know, from 3/4, it's now got a little bit of thickness to it. And I will make sure not to let that edge touch. See, that's one of the things, again, you don't let the edge touch and suddenly it feels a lot rounder. It feels like there's a beveled edge right there. So now we have thickness, right? We've got thing going this way and then going that way. Just by adding this extra line, you know, maybe it would have a bit of a shadow on it, which is, again, increasing thickness. But then we can go further. Like, let's say there's some detail on this belt. Maybe there's like some stitching and it actually goes like this and then like that in terms of contour. And then you get like a little bit of a ridge here and here. Okay, well, we can do that. Okay, and then maybe there was like a, where the thing was sewn or whatever, stitched together, you get some thread showing. So you could do this. And then again, you're just adding a bit of detail, and you could also make these, you know, have some thickness of their own. But it's really increasing the believability of this as you add thickness to things. and make sure they're not so paper-like. And then here too, because there's like a little bit of a change, there would be a little shadow here, and here too there would be a shadow. So adding, maybe a little bit of shadow to that. Now it's making this feel way more complicated than when we started and we just had this type of straight thing. Maybe you did this where you have the holes in the belt. Well, we can add holes in this belt too. And let's do some here as well. But here, maybe you would see inside a little bit. That part might get a bit more shadow. And you've got something more like that. So again, adding dimension to this, not letting it be just super paper-like, can help a lot. Even here, maybe there's like a little indication that those holes have thickness to them. So actually would be even thicker than that probably. But yeah, these are the types of things that can really help to improve your drawings. Same thing with collars. You don't want to do this with a collar that's going down, because this implies there is absolutely no thickness to this fabric. But if I do it like this, where there's a little bit of a ridge here, that means we're seeing that side plane as it goes around like that, and then it goes back. Like that. Like these lines are just contour lines. They're not, actual lines on the thing. And then, you get a shadow. So just having those little bits of thickness can really improve your drawings a lot. And then just making sure when you have, things where, like a box, try not to make things touch so much. And this works for a lot of different objects, not just boxes, but really think about the thickness of anything. Even the thinnest thing you can think of, try and imagine like maybe there is some thickness, and how would you show that? And I guess that's pretty much it. But it's a small thing, and maybe if you've got some experience, this isn't something you do. But I've seen so many people, especially beginners starting out, do this, and I definitely did this for a long time, where I just made all the edges touch and it looked flat, and I wasn't exactly sure why things look so flat. Another thing you can do is just vary your line. So instead of doing something like this where it's purely straight, and I see this a lot in like concept art stuff, things are way too straight, and that's not gonna add a feeling of dimension. Sometimes in art you want to actually have a crappier line so that it feels like there is texture to this. If it's supposed to be super straight like metal, that's fine. But if it's wood, just having a little bit of an uneven line can imply there is some variation to this, and it creates visual interest, and it just makes things look a lot more realistic. So yeah, that's my advice for adding thickness to things. I hope it helps, and thanks for watching.